My name is Ray Ross. I am proud and happy to be here representing I don't know who, but mostly myself, because we're all thrilled to spend a few minutes with Gino and celebrating his birthday. The order of events are going to be pretty simple. We're going to certainly acknowledge Gino, have some of his friends make some words about it. Broadcasters can never get the microphone right. You know, we can do all kinds of things in video. We can never get the microphone right. So we're okay on the mic, right?
Where's your logo?
Yeah, I like a little more bass on this, Larry, but we're okay on that. One of the great things about our broadcasting community here in town of late is this wonderful place, the Bundy. And there's a whole long name for this place. We call it the Bundy. And the Bundy has been very, very good to broadcasters through the efforts of the Southern Tier Hall of Fame and Tom Shevchenko. They have been very supportive in recognizing broadcasting as an art beyond an entertainment medium. And for many years now, we've had ceremonies with the Broadcasters Hall of Fame, of which Gino is a member, as is Shirley, Gino's wife. They are the only husband-wife team in there, unless you count Frank Penny. And Warren is a husband-wife team, but that's neither here nor there. We like both of them, and bless Warren's soul. But please, if you have a chance, check out the Hall of Fame in there. Check out the room over there where they have a little studio that's always in the process of being upgraded, and some great things. To really formalize this event and start it off properly, I want to introduce you to someone from the Bundy. She is the big kahuna here, we'll call her. Give a big hand from the Bundy to Jenna Rutler, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, thank you, Ray. I'm only one of a couple of big kahunas here. The other standing in the back, that's Eric, and he runs this place very, very well, and he's responsible for getting this all up off the ground today. But I want to thank you for coming to the Bundy Museum of History and Art today to honor Gino Ricciardelli. We have a long and beautiful past with the STBA and with the Society of Broadcast Engineers, as Ray alluded to. A couple of housekeeping things. Through the red curtains all the way in the back are restrooms. There are refreshments, drinks. There are exits where you came in front, and through the clock room there on the left. So if you should need exits, that's where they're at. There's also a donation box by our front door as you go outside. Feel free to drop in a couple of bucks and help support this museum and some of the fun things that we do here, like this event. So thank you for coming, and without further ado, I introduce Bob Huckabone.
Well, my prepared notes say, I asked Ray to let me speak first. And the reason for that is because I'm videotaping, and I want to put it on YouTube or someplace. So I did want to say that I met Rick about 40-something years ago at Channel 40. And Rick, I call him Rick. Other people call him Gino. Some people call him Ricciardelli. Anyway, he was responsible for Channel 40 being on the edge, technically, in this market. When I started at Channel 40 in 1972, we had slides, we had black and white 16mm film, and then Scott Dillard called it the heart and lung machine, where we developed the black and white film. It would go kushoo, 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 right? And then it would tear up the film a lot of times. Then Rick got us into color, sound on film. And then a short time later, went to videotape. Nobody else in the market was using videotape in news. There were a couple of reasons for it. One, it was a new thing. Second, it was cheaper, right, Rick? So he got us into probably a Sony, a big machine, and a record playback machine you carried on one shoulder. You had the camera on your another shoulder, and you had a cable in between, and then you had a light belt, because it took a lot of light. And we could record up to 20 minutes rather than 5 minutes with a film. That machine in 1975 allowed us to shoot continuous footage for at least 20 minutes, and we had 2 cassettes at that time of the drowning of the fire chief in Binghamton. And that video, if you look today on YouTube, I think it's called Drowning Machine or something like that, it's still there. And that was from 1975. 5 years later, Channel 12 stopped using film and went to videotape. And Rick brought it all the way through. I left in '79, so he was probably involved then in where we are today, outside of videotape. And so I want to thank Rick for keeping Channel 40 ahead of the technical edge here, and tell you that I appreciate all you've done. Thank you.
You know, I'm an old radio guy, and I'm going to fuss with this microphone. Does this where it tightens, Eric? It seems to be drooping. I think we're going to be okay.
Story of my life.
All right. One of the things we should add about Bob Huckabone and Gino, Bob Huckabone for the past 10, 15 years at least has been instrumental in maintaining, has been instrumental in maintaining, no, it's going the other way, has been instrumental in maintaining the history of broadcasting in this area through his, initially his Bob Huckabone TV show, of which those shows are all archived and they're really a wonder to see, by establishing the first of the many Binghamton Broadcasters reunion. But more importantly, Bob has been archiving on video veteran broadcasters, many of them who are here today, including Bill Parker. Say hello to Bill Parker, the Dean of Broadcasting. Bill has been battling a tree in his backyard that came down on his garage. Even single-handedly sawing that tree down, right?
Piece by piece.
Piece by piece. And Gino mentioned to me today that he and Bob Huckabone have done at least 6 programs, if you will, of the history of not only Gino, but of Shirley Ricciardelli, Gino's wife, and some of the others. If you have a chance to see those videos, see Bob Huckabone. He'll be happy to share them with you, and whatever you want to do, give you a copy. And they're really very, very good. But the point is that Bob Huckabone really has done a tremendous job of archiving the history of broadcasting in this community. I don't think there's any group of broadcasters that is more active in terms of the history than the Binghamton Broadcasting Group. So we just want to mention that as well. Tom Shevchenko is not here. He's the chairman of the Southern Tier Broadcasters Hall of Fame. On behalf of Tom, we want to acknowledge Gino again and invite you to see the Hall of Fame exhibit in there. Also behind me here is a super Rod Serling exhibit, if you haven't seen that. The Bundy has been very, very good about maintaining all of those things. So many people here that have had an association with Gino, and as part of his birthday thing, and we're going to try to keep it moving here and keep it light. I want to introduce you to Eric Adler. Eric Adler is a chairman of SBE Chapter 1, and Eric will expound on this a little bit. I don't know if you know this or not, but SBE, the SBE group was founded in Binghamton, New York. Now it's a nationwide group. Eric will tell you more about that. And this guy sitting in the middle row, or in the front row in the middle, was one of the founders of SBE, and now, over the years, SBE Chapter 1. Our good friend Eric Adler, ladies and gentlemen.
So as you all mostly know, Gino was very instrumental in many of the stations around Binghamton, getting them on the air and at Fox 40 for many years. He was also the second chair of SBE Chapter 1 and one of the founding members. I actually have a note here that was sent for his 95th birthday from SBE National. It says, "Gino, we wish you the best on your 95th birthday and congratulations on 75 years in broadcasting, from Jerry Massey, the SBE president, and John Poirier, the SBE executive director." Read a bit of Gino's history. Gino learned electronics in night school in the Bronx in the early 40s, prior to World War II. He started broadcasting in 1942 as a switchboard operator at WNBF. During the war, he learned to communicate over submarine cables with Western Union. And after the war, he joined WSNY in Schenectady as a transmitter engineer. In 1949, he was instrumental in putting WNBF TV on the air. And in 1952, he became a member of the Institute of Radio Engineers. In 1957, he was in charge of putting WINR TV, now WICZ TV, on the air, and along with many others. And he was one of the founding members of SBE in Chapter 1. And I'd like now to go to a video of this. In 2014, Gino became a fellow of SBE, and he talked about the history of SBE better than I could. Happy birthday, Gino.
We are very pleased to have a special guest with us today, a charter member of the Society, who is also a founding member of Chapter 1 in Binghamton, New York. He is going to share with us a few remembrances of those early days of the SBE. Please welcome member number 117, Gino Ricciardelli.
I'm here today to allow you to have a few moments of how Chapter 1 came into being and who the people might have been that were there. We were at that moment in time, we were members of an organization called the Institute of Radio Engineers, which was under the auspices of a larger group of people called the IEEE. We felt at that time that we weren't getting enough recognition, so along came Mr. Battison, as you all saw on the screen. He sent out letters to all the various engineers that he could find, and we got a letter asking us if we were interested in starting a chapter. Charles Hallinan, who was the chief engineer of a radio station in Binghamton, New York, got in touch with me and said, "Shall we apply?" I said, "Certainly, let's apply." And we did apply, and about 3 months later, we became Chapter 1. One of the interesting things about the chapter and Charles Hallinan was we had a famous talk, and we used to say, "Charlie is running this thing from his kitchen table," and which he literally was, because he was running not only the chapter but the beginning of the society. Of course, when the society got more chapters, it became very apparent that we needed an office and a staff to do it, because we didn't have the time to devote to it. So eventually an office was created, and Charlie Hallinan gave up his kitchen table and paperwork. We also attempted to have a small exhibitor meeting in Owego, New York. We got together, not quite what you have today, but enough of them to get some interest. And we had it in Owego because it was a central point for the towns of Elmira, Ithaca, and Binghamton, where all our members were coming from. And we tried that, but then became very apparent that we weren't big enough chapter to handle this on a yearly basis, so we finally, chapter 22 took over that and has been doing a great job since then. I have been a member ever since the thing started. I still am a member, and I enjoyed all the camaraderie and all the educational features that the society has given us over this 50 years that it's been in existence. And I also enjoyed being a frequency coordinator for about 30 years. And that was an interesting little project, and I gave it up about a year ago to another gentleman because I decided it was time for some younger guy to take over this stuff. And so that really is the background to how the society started and how Chapter 1 became number 1. And to this day it's still in existence, and I hope it will stay in existence by the new members that have come in. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Gino. We're so glad that you were able to be here with us today, and we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us about the early days of the SBE. And for those of you in the audience, if you're not aware of it, Gino is receiving the SBE Fellow Award tonight during the SBE National Awards Dinner, an honor well deserved. Thank you again, Gino.
Within the first 2 months of the organization's existence, 5 chapters were formed. Chapter 1 in Binghamton, New York, was followed by Chapter 2 in Scranton, Pennsylvania, Chapter 3 in Hutchinson, Kansas, Chapter 4 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and Chapter 5 in Atlanta, Georgia. Chapter 1 was chaired by Charles Hallinan, a radio station chief engineer in Binghamton and a charter member of the SBE. He and other local engineers had an informal group that had already been meeting, and he offered to Madison that it become Chapter 1 of the new SBE. The first official meeting of Chapter 1 was held in June 1964 at the Your Home Library in Johnson City, New York. Another charter member, Gino Ricciardelli, eventually chaired the chapter, freeing up Hallinan to serve at the national level as Executive Vice President and later the SBE's second president.
Wow. I want to thank Vinny Lopez of SBE Chapter 22. Is Vinny here? Oh, how are you, Vinny? Hi, Vinny. He's provided the recording of Gino's fellowship speech. You know, I've been around a long time, and some of this stuff in this short little video I had no idea occurred. This is just amazing. Once again, a happy birthday and a big round of applause for Gino Ricciardelli and the SBE involvement. And for what it's worth, Gino, you'll be the first to share this. Charlie Hallinan's kitchen table later became the main studio for WAAL, back then WKOP-FM, which originated in not only Charlie's house, but in his backyard with a long wire antenna. Did you encourage him to do that?
Yep.
You did? I'm sure you did. I can see the two of you, let's put that antenna up here. And it worked, and the rest is history. Thank you again, Benny. That's really great stuff. And the SBE history is just tremendously exciting to me, I think. John Leet has been the guy over at Channel 40. Certainly not as long as Gino. How many years were you at 40, Gino, officially?
I don't know, 30-some.
John, you've been there how long?
Well, let's see, 16 the first time, 20 the second.
We'll be honoring you on your 95th birthday. From Channel 40, here's John Leet, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, thank you, Ray. Well, I've got a couple of things here to present Gino,
And I'm just going to go down the list here. The first one is a postcard. Which I don't know how many of you can see it, but this is a postcard, and I'll read it to you. It says, "Hello, happy birthday, Rick. Photo from 1979. In the newsroom you helped create. Mark Williams and me. Thank you for your leadership then and your inspiration today. God bless, Steve Newman." Do you remember Steve? Okay.
All right. Here. Hang on, I'll give you, we'll be piling things up there, Gino, one thing at a time.
Okay. All right, next. I have a letter from Northwest Broadcasting, and dated July 25th, 2017. And it says, "All of us at Northwest Broadcasting are delighted to welcome Gino, to wish Gino a very happy 95th birthday. Gino has been a member of the Northwest family for 20 years, since our purchase of WICZ TV in 1997. He has served as our chief engineer at Fox 40 and later as a valued consultant who oversaw our conversion from standard definition to high definition. Happy birthday and many more. Signed, Brian Brady."
So now we'll put that one with that one, you know, there we go. We'll stand these all, okay?
All right, next. The next item here is a plaque. And this is from the New York State Broadcasters. I was lucky enough, I had a very nice conversation with David Donovan, who's the president of the New York State Broadcasters. And he said, and it was funny, he said, "You know, I worked at a station for about 10 years. And I have tremendous respect for people like Gino, because they're the ones that have to walk in the general manager's office, and they're either going to give him bad news or ask for money." And I said, "You know something? Ain't that the truth?" Yeah, that's the truth. So anyway, David wanted to say it was people like you that built broadcasting. He regrets the fact that he's not able to be here today, but he did send this beautiful plaque, and it says, "Presented to Mr. Gino Ricciardelli in celebration of his 95th birthday and outstanding career in the field of broadcast engineering. With deep appreciation, New York State Broadcasters Association." Very nice plaque.
Nice.
All right, that's all the gifts I have to give you. Now you're going to have to listen to me talk. So it's all downhill from here. All right, Gino is a guy who's seen an awful lot in his career in broadcasting. From his beginnings at WNBF in 1942 until today, he was instrumental in the evolution of broadcasting in our area. Gino put the first television station on the air in 1949, and Gino's wife Shirley played a major role in that event, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. In the years between 2006 and 2008, he oversaw the transition of the Northwest broadcast stations from standard definition to high definition television. In the 60 years between those two events, he watched television go from live studio produced shows to satellite transmission of syndicated and network shows. He oversaw the conversion from black and white television to color television. I tried to think of words to describe Gino. And then I thought the best description was steady. There was never an ounce of panic in Gino Ricciardelli. No matter what the awful event that might have taken place was, he always was calm. And he goes, "Yeah, okay, well, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna have to take a look at it, but it's gonna be fine." That was always reassuring. No matter what the situation was, he always had that great ability to come up with the answer. There are countless examples of that, and I'm going to share just a few of those with you. On November 1st, 1957, Gino put WICZ TV on the air. And that's quite a story. Because what happened was the Press and Sun Bulletin at the time was putting the station on, and so they thought that they would bring in a program director from one of their other markets to actually launch the station and as far as the actual programming goes.
Well, that was a great idea, except when the day for the big launch came, he called in sick. Not only did he call in sick that day, he called in sick the next day and the next day. And the reason why he called in sick was because he really didn't know what he was doing. So, the general manager, as I think anybody would understand, was a little bit worried due to the fact nothing was done. They were going on the air and there had nothing done. So, he went to Rick and he says, Gino, what are we going to do? And he said, go see Cheryl. Now, Cheryl was the creative services director at the station. So Shirley actually did all the logs, scheduled all the announcers. These are all live shows, you got to remember, back then. And did everything that needed to be done that day, from the time they found out this guy was calling in sick till the time the station actually went on the air. So you can truly say that WICZ TV was put on the air by Gino and Shirley Ricciardelli. He had so many firsts. He did the first remote, the first live remote for the March of Dimes telethon. And at the time, that was, if you remember the old March of Dimes telethon, it was 24 hours. So he ended up having to sleep at the station there, just in case something went bad. He could be an inventor too. One time the water cooler at the transmitter broke. And obviously, once the water cooler springs a leak, the transmitter is not going to run. So, station went off the air. Now those transmitter water coolers cost about $20,000 back in those days. So Gino went downtown, went to some stores, bought compressors, bought pipes, built his own water cooler, installed the thing, and they used it for a year and a half. They probably could still be using it today if we're still doing that. But after a year and a half, they have found enough money so they could buy their own for 20 grand. But Gino put that back together and he invented his own. This is another story I really enjoyed. The Friday night fights back in the day was a really big thing. And Gino found out that they were off the air just before the Friday night fights were supposed to start, in the afternoon actually. Now, this particular Friday night fight was Joe Lewis's last fight. So it was a really big deal. So he had to go up to the transmitter. NYSEG didn't even know they had a power problem. He found the line that was down, called NYSEG, told them where the line was, and they went up and fixed it. They got back on the air for Joe Lewis's last fight, half hour before Joe Lewis fought. Did a lot better than Joe Lewis. He didn't do that well that fight. One thing I didn't want to talk about, I think Rick's best decision in life was marrying Shirley. And I think he has made that point to me many times. The other great one he made was he had a friend named Green here that he had done a lot of business with. And he was working in West Palm Beach. And this gentleman, Green, gave him a call. And he said, you know, the Press and Sun Bulletin is putting a television station on the air, and they need a chief engineer. Now, he'd been in West Palm Beach, I don't think that long, maybe a year or something like that. Anyway, he went to Shirley that night, and he said, Cheryl, what do you think? Do you want to go back? And basically it was, how fast can we get there? So West Palm's loss was Binghamton's gain. And I think it was one of the great decisions ever made as far as WICZ TV was concerned. I'll tell you that for sure. Rick, the only other thing I'd like to say is I'd like to thank you for all the many, many times you've bailed us out over the years at WICZ. I'd like to thank you for a few times you bailed me out at WMGC that were unsanctioned. Really shouldn't talk about that, but anyway, Larry Brown knows about it anyway, so it's okay. And happy birthday and many more.
Gino, that telethon that you guys did, was that the one where Colonel Klink was in town? You remember him? From Hogan's Heroes? They had celebrities they brought in back in those days for the telethons. And I think Linda Zerbreg, you know Linda, we all know Linda, talks about meeting Colonel Klink, one of the great moments in her life. I guess. So it's great to see these kind of things that go on. We were talking earlier that if we all allowed each one of us to talk for a second about Gino, we'd be here till midnight, because that second would evolve in hours and hours and hours. We sent out an email blast telling people about this event today, and some of them couldn't come, of course, and some of them sent some notes about Gino. We just want to read a couple of these, and Bob thought it would be a good idea so we can all get kind of reacquainted with some of the people in the audience, that we kind of help people or ask people to read a paragraph or two that came on the email. And one of the stations that has acknowledged Gino and his birthday is what is now iHeartRadio. Part of that is WINR, and or used to be. You know, you can't keep track of anything anymore. It's just crazy. One of the guys that worked at INR, along with me and Bob Huckabone, both Bob and I don't admit that too much, but this guy admits to working there. He did one of the greatest jazz shows ever on Saturday nights on WINR. Still is very active in the Hall of Fame, and with the memories we have none other than Hank Summers. Hank, if you'd come up for just a second, we got a note here from Tom Barney over at Clear Channel, iHeart, whatever they are, and a gift for Gino, if you would read that for us.
Okay. One of the things, do you remember the first color broadcast on WINR, Channel 40? It was on the first colored broadcast. It was on a Saturday night. It was the Jerry Lewis Telethon, and I used to do Saturday nights on radio. And one thing I had to do before I left was to record a newscast that was on TV that played something like 1 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, that was Labor Day weekend. The Jerry Lewis Telethon was on. It was a live broadcast, and it was the first time that, one, I did the newscast live and on camera in color, and then the first broadcast by WINR was the Jerry Lewis Telethon that night. And then a week or two later, I did the newscasts for WINR TV for a couple of weeks, and that was I was the first one that did the television news in color on WINR. So it goes back quite a while, and it was the start of color for Channel 40. We thank Gino for that. Here from Tom Barney from iHeart Media, and they still call it WINR on here. So that congratulations to Gino Ricciardelli on the special recognition day for his many years of dedication to the world of radio and TV. As a 50-year veteran of the radio industry, I know the benefits of having a great engineer. Gino was truly that during his years of service. Not only did Gino work at many stations in Binghamton after serving Uncle Sam in the Signal Corps, also worked in Schenectady, Palm Beach, Florida, Scranton, and Reading, Pennsylvania. After putting Palm Beach on the air, he came back to Binghamton as chief engineer for WINR. So iHeartRadio would like to congratulate Gino on his many years of service and on his 95th birthday. Signed, Tom Barney, market president for iHeartRadio. You have the envelope too.
And Tom sends that gift. Tom sends that gift, right, Bob?
Yes.
That's from Tom Barney.
Oh, okay. This is, Superman.
Oh my God, you are Superman.
Super engineer. You want to open it up?
Yeah.
And let everybody
Oh my God, super engineer.
Scott Feibush writes a column. He's a real radio groupie, young fella. Writes a column about radio, publishes this calendar of towers. Every month is a different tower. You know, we joke about pin-up calendars. The engineers would prefer to see a tower every month, a different tower. There's a lot of jokes in there. We're not going to go there. Scott Feibush sent some words of wisdom. Why don't we get Chris Miller? Would you just read this for just a second for us, Chris? Y'all know Chris Miller? Say hi to Chris Miller here.
Hi, folks. Hey, Chris.
It's right there, Chris. From Scott Feibush.
I have to read it cold?
Yeah.
On the right side. It says, hi, Bob. Here's the WNBF, WBNG site. Hope it's not too late. Please give Gino all my best. I wish I could be there for the party, but I'll be heading west that day. Okay. I'd love to share some pictures and stories in my column if someone can send me some along.
Good. That's all. From Scott Feibush.
Yeah.
All right. I'll do this one. I don't know if you remember Tony Angelotti. He was a disc jockey years ago on WENE. He's in Ohio now. He comes through. He's got kids that live in Oneonta. And he left the radio business to become a chef. God bless him. Now he's retired. And now he's set up this website about radio. And he's got all these air checks in it. And it's kind of fun. And Tony says, Judy, his wife, won't be able to attend. Please convey our best wishes. Tony Angelotti. All right. Let's see. We just got a couple more of these. Let me do this one, Bob, if I may. Patty Ruland, who played the hits for many years and knew Gino, says, I live in South Carolina now. Won't be there, but I'll be there in spirit. Congratulate Gimp. That's what she's calling you. And send everyone my love, Patty. Okay, good. Roger Neal is here, ladies and gentlemen. Say hello to Roger Neal. We're going to give Roger the big one to read. A note from, come on up here, Rog. This is a note from Margaret Bryant. Margaret Bryant was an engineer here in Binghamton, worked under the tutelage of Gino and Charlie Hallinan, and Margaret went on to be the chief engineer for ABC Radio Networks out of Dallas. Margaret has left broadcasting to pursue her first love, which is dog photography. So there's hope for all of us. Roger Neal, we have a couple of notes here from Margaret Bryant right there.
All right. She writes, I think it is wonderful that he is being honored. He encouraged me in my early career. A very nice man. I wish I could come, but I will be sure to send him a card. You caught me by surprise in your subject line of the email. I've been hearing of too many friends lately that have been diagnosed with a terminal disease or have passed away. I'm glad this was not the case here. Thanks for sending this, Ray. I hope you and your family are well. Signed, Margaret. There you go.
There you go.
While I'm here, I'm just going to mention, too, I'm so happy to just reflect for a moment on WWF. That's where it all started for you back in 1942. Wow. So who would have thought at this day and age later that you started your career with WWF, which, by the way, is celebrating our 90th anniversary this year, too. Wow. So Gino, happy birthday, and thanks for all you've done for our industry. Thank you. Email, Margaret. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I want to say hello to Gary Talkowitz. Gary, we're not going to let you read this one unless you really want to. Gary has been, we knew Gary when he was just a kid. Now he's a big-time engineer and learned a lot from Gino. You're in Wilkes-Barre.
Yes.
I said Scranton earlier. He corrected me. It's Wilkes-Barre.
It's a hyphenated mark.
Excuse me. What station are you at?
It's WBRE and WYOU.
Okay, up there it was. So it's nice seeing Gary. I haven't seen Gary in a long, long time. The last note we have.
The hyphen is silent.
the last note we have. It's a little longer than one of the others. It comes from Tom Birch. I don't know if any of you know who Tom Birch is. Tom Birch was a disc jockey years ago at WENE, and he's going to talk about those days. Tom Birch left WENE to be a disc jockey in Rochester. Years later, I'm playing the hits on WENE, and in comes Tom Birch. Yeah, hi, how are you? He says, I got this great idea. He says, I want to start a rating service to compete with Arbitron. And I looked at him. I'm a kid. I got the earphones on, and he's a year or two older than I am. I said, what? You're gonna start a rating service to compete with Arbitron? Are you crazy? Turned out that became the Birch Report. It was a major competitor of Arbitron, and Tom Birch made more money than all of us combined. And Tom sold that company to Scarborough Research. That became part of Nielsen. Tom now owns 6 radio stations. I think it's 6 radio stations somewhere, and he's doing very well for himself. Where?
Virginia.
In Virginia? And he's doing very well. I forgot your name. Yeah.
John Ziller.
John, come on up here, John, if you don't mind, and read this note from Tom Birch from Gino. It's a little long, but I think you're going to be good with this, John.
All right. My reading glasses, but I'll do my best.
All right.
Doris Ray, if possible, please send this message to Gino, or if he is not available by email, convey it to him in person when you are next together. I am out of the country until August 8th and will have limited non-existent email access. Thanks. Gino, while I'm unable to attend the birthday recognition day, I want to send you a note of congratulations and a personal note of gratitude. As you may recall, I lived around the corner from you on Ritchie Road, and as a teenager was avidly interested in ham radio and radio broadcasting. In 1966, you gave me a 100-watt AM transmitter and cast-off turntables. With these assets, I wired a control panel and built a studio in my bedroom and began a regular scheduled broadcast, heard by no one, to our neighborhood. Your support, encouragement, and equipment contribution changed my life. By practicing at home, I was able to become sufficiently competent to land jobs at WNBF, WINR, and WKOP before heading to stations in Rochester, Oklahoma City, New Orleans, and Miami, Fort Lauderdale. Radio has and continues to be my passion. Thank you, Gino, for helping me set me on a wonderful and successful career path. I'm happy 95th. I sincerely wish that I could be with you to celebrate. Tom.
Great, thank you, John. We'd like to spring those or read these things so no one has time to prepare. Good, let's see, we got all of that kind of stuff done. Before we bring Gino up, we're all here to celebrate Gino's 95th birthday and his life, of course. We do want to introduce you to one person who is here. You may be wondering who these people are here. I went over and said, who are you people here? This is Roberta Rittenhouse. This is Gino's daughter. Say hello to Roberta, ladies and gentlemen.
Fred Heckman's daughter.
Fred Heckman's daughter. There's your honorary daughter. That's right.
As a kid growing up, my dad.
Come on up here, Roberta.
Oh.
All right, stay there. We're good.
As a kid growing up, my dad would talk about Ricciardelli. And for years, I always thought his first name was Rick and his last name was Adela. Yeah. All the golfing buddy, right? He was a golfing buddy with my dad. I remember the big snowstorm back in probably 1962, 1963, one of the big snowstorms. And they came, the station sent a Jeep to my dad's house and picked him up to take him up to the towers. And I just thought that was the coolest thing. I just thought, wow, he was so important to get picked up in the Jeep. That's back when we used to have the big snows back in the 60s. Yeah.
I remember that one.
You remember that? Yeah.
It wasn't very big.
Yeah.
It was this high.
Yeah.
I was this high.
I remember going to visit my dad when he worked the night shift. It was on Henry Street. I don't know that building that I remember when they were broadcasting from there.
Yep.
And I run into Gino a few times there. Well,
These are great stories.
I'm here representing my dad because he had a lot of great respect for you.
Did you want to say something?
All right, thank you so much. Sorry I got that messed up, but you'll accept her as your daughter, right? You sure will. Okay, thank you, Roberta. Thank you so much. Just want to, before we bring Gino up, let me see if we got everything. We, what?
Oh,
Bill, you're gonna say a few words?
May I?
Of course you may. You're gonna do it from there, or if you wanna come up here.
I think I'll be safer here.
Okay?
But I have been so pleased to hear all of these happy thoughts and memories and recollections that have been going on during this presentation. Rick, happy birthday to you. What a great pleasure working with you back in 1949, December 1st, 4 or 5 hours a day. You were running around and getting that station on the air when right across the street on that December 1st was a history-making moon block fire from the Arlington Hotel. It was a great event. We didn't have the facilities to get cameras outside to the fire, and we had a Dick Phillips person, a photographer, that was available to the station, and he took a lot of the pictures, put them together on film. What great memories of our beginnings of Channel 12. What great memories these are for you, Rick, that you go back to. And what a great pleasure to me. I'm proud to be here with you all, and I thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you, Bill Parker. We just want to acknowledge a couple of people we haven't, just so we all know each other. Scott Swinner's over here. Everybody's here for Rick. Scott is here for Rick. Who's that guy next to you?
Bill Murray.
Yes, hello, Bill. Nice seeing. Say hello to Bill Murray here. Here we are. We saw Chris Miller, Larry Brown, another engineer's engineer. Should have been a disc jockey with that voice. His way.
Oh, yeah, right.
Hey, listen, there's a lot of money in being a disc jockey. Look at this jacket, right? All right.
Let me see the lining.
What'd you say? Let me see the money?
The lining.
The lighting. Yeah, these guys are worried about the lights. And I don't know you.
I'm Amanda Bruin.
Hi, Amanda. You're here to salute Rick? Is that the idea? Okay. And back Doris Huckabone. Hello, Doris. And who's your friend next to you?
Jackie Lee, John's wife.
Oh, yes. Hi, Jackie. I didn't recognize you from over here. And this is Bob, Hank Summers' wife, Roz. We talked about Gary Talkowitz. One other person, yeah, Bruce Nelson, part of the Explorer group years ago, still hangs out, comes to all of these events. His brother's Keith Nelson, and you had an uncle or niece, or not a niece, but an uncle or somebody.
My cousin.
Cousin that went to ESPN or someplace, right?
MTV, Nickelodeon, and he built CNBC.
It's all in the blood.
Yeah.
And one last guy, I think this fellow, you're a fan of Gino's, right? Right. What's your first name?
Jeff.
Nice seeing you here today. One last thing, we're going to bring Gino up. One of the things I remember about Gino, we were kind of joking a little bit. Engineers do everything from plumbing to air conditioning, and quite often and back in the corner here, Dave Frost, we want to acknowledge him as well. But engineers do everything, at least back in the days. Gary, you know, plumbing, fix the John, anything that needs to be done. Call the engineer, he'll fix it. And as a result, they sometimes had the stereotype, you know, the overalls and so on. And that takes nothing away from the job they do and the respect that we all have for the job they do. One of the things that always struck me about Gino, I grew up at WE&E with Jack Fischler and Pat Nelson, and these guys were your stereotype, smoke the cigar, we're the overall engineers. Every time I'd see Gino, and I don't know how he did it, you always had a suit and tie and a sport coat on, a green one. I remember you had a green sport coat every time I saw you. And I want to ask you right now, Gino, when you had to crawl under equipment and racks, did that sport coat go underneath as well? It did. You didn't have a spare set of clothes? Did Shirley that make Shirley upset or no?
No, she was never upset. She's the one that got me dressed up.
Happy 95th birthday. Come on up. Gino Ricciardelli, ladies and gentlemen. You can work the microphone as you see fit.
Yeah, I think I can
You think you can
get
do
to
that?
it.
All right.
You can all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Good, okay. Well, I'm overwhelmed. And I want to thank all of you, your kind words and your descriptions, and people who took my career and try to give you a little story on it. I just want to add to the stories that you've heard is that I was a telephone switchboard operator at WNBF when I first came to Binghamton. And how I got to come to Binghamton is because I was in a little town called West New York, New Jersey, which is across the Hudson River from 55th Street in Manhattan. And the reason I left there was to come here to get a job at IBM. And I applied because I had just left a ninth class in electronics. And the person who interviewed me said, "You're fine, we could hire you, but there's one problem." And I said, "What's that?" "You're going to be drafted. And if we hire you, you'll be gone in a couple of months and we will spend all our time." So I said, "Okay." So then I decided, well, I'll go to Link Aviation. They need engineers. I went there, I got the same story. So I finally decided one thing: enlist in the United States Signal Corps. And that was in 1942. And I went in there and I was with that unit for 3 years and got more education and help. And I finally came out and started to get into broadcasting. And one little story I'll give you about my time in the Army. The war ended in Europe, and that was in June sometime. And when the war ended, we were given a project to repair and ship out what we call walkie-talkies, which now people call cell phones. They were about that big. And we had to refurbish them, we had to retune them, and there were only 3 of us, and we couldn't make the quota that they wanted. So I went to my superior officer and I said, "I need help." And they said, "Okay, we'll get you help." 3 days later, 30 German prisoners of war showed up to do the work that I needed. And when I went to the sergeant in charge and I said, "How am I going to tell the people about equipment when I don't speak German?" He said, "Don't worry about it. They know all about your equipment. They've captured a lot of it, so they don't have to be instructed." So we didn't instruct them, and we did that for 3 more months. We shipped a whole bunch of stuff out to the Japanese war zone, and then the war ended in that year, and all the German prisoners of war went home, and so did I. But that's just a little story that occurred to me while I was in this service. All the other things that were talked about here are just remembrance. I remember most of them. I probably remember all of them now that you bring them up. And I appreciate all those stories. And I enjoyed my entire career of 65 years in radio and television. I also enjoyed putting WNBF TV, which was Channel 12, on the air in 1949. I enjoyed putting WICZ on the air in 1957. And I put on WSKG in 1968, I believe. I got a tower put up from a company that I was doing business with who built towers, and they put the tower that's now sitting on Indian Hill. And so that's what I basically did for my 65 years, and I enjoyed all the people I worked with. I had many engineers, many technicians. Give you a quickie. I hired 4 technicians to put WNBF on the air from a school in New York called RCA Institute. And 4 of them showed up, and we built the studios and the transmitter. But after a couple of years, 2 of them went back to NBC Network, 2 more went to Hollywood. One of them became a cameraman on soap opera, I'm trying to think of the name, General Hospital or whatever it is. For 30 years he was a cameraman on that, and he was a cameraman for us at Channel 12 after he left. So those are some of the things that I talk about, and I enjoyed the presentation of SBE because I remember how we did that. Charlie Hallinan and I put together so that we could, the basic reason for doing it, by the way, was so you could borrow each other's test equipment because budgets weren't that great. And we also could pass along information that we come across through how we were working. So SBE was really set up to educate engineers so they'd be ready to go into the business. So other than that, I have not much more to tell you. And I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate you enjoying my 95th birthday. I'm trying to hit 100, and I'll see if I make it. And I also want to thank you for all the kind words of my wife, who was in the business for over 50 years herself, and she wrote the first local commercials on Channel 12, and the commercial in those days consisted of a 35mm slide, which was the picture of the whoever that we were put, part of the commercial, the storefront, and then the telephone number and other information were put on a piece of cardboard, which we put in a tree leaf folder. We used to call them flip cards, and we'd flip these over. That's how we got the commercials done before we had 16mm or tape and all these wonderful pieces of electronic equipment that do all this artwork now by pushing buttons rather than using your hands. So that history was great, and I remember it well, and I again thank all you people for your kindness. Thank you.
Gino, don't go away. Gino, don't go away. You know, we really are honored, as you all know, and I'm glad you're standing. And please stay that way. You have so many friends here, so many friends that couldn't be here, and the real friends, not the real friends, but many of your friends have helped planning this event, including Eric Adler, Bob and Doris Huckabone, John Lee, Jenna Rudler here at the Bundy, and everyone else. We're celebrating Gino's 95th birthday. The day would not be complete with some birthday cake. We have some cake, and before it's cut, take a look at it. I think you'll find something very, very special on the top of that cake. And since you're also on the top of the cake here, Gino, why don't you all, as you are standing, and let's do what people do on birthdays. You know what that is?
Sing happy.
Sing a happy birthday. Are we ready? I'll lead. Good luck to all of us. Ready? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday. more conversation. Thank you, Gino. Happy birthday.
Where's the cake?
Take the knife, and I'll get out of the way. Yeah, whichever way you want to cut.
The time she went live on the show, it was so shook up.
And so, friends, ends the birthday celebration for Gino Ricciardelli, a Bob Huckabone production.